That was actually a great panel. Thank you both. You know, as someone who's been, you know, was up here at the beginning and now is going to, Jim and I are going to close it out. Hearing those two guys was really an excellent way to sort of wrap this up, Jim, because you really see two states, and who would have thought it would be Maine and Idaho, right, that have taken on the stuff that we've all been talking about here today. That would have been a really good ending here. And he says, as his chair falls backwards. But taking two states that you would not have thought would have been the leaders, right? Maine and Idaho, rethinking the whole strategy, and to some extent implementing quite successfully way beyond some of the stuff we're urging the country to do now. So I thought this is a very short wrap-up session where we're going to highlight some sort of marching orders for the group. But I think one of them was, quite simply, because that was such an interesting discussion with both Jeff and Tom, was how do we learn from those models quickly, make it part of the national discussion, the national movement that we're building here. And then obviously, for folks like us who live in California, that's going to be a little different in LA, Frank, I think, than it would be in the state of Idaho. But most of the principles are the same. And they've solved a lot of the issues that they've been addressing some of the issues we're all talking about here today. So I thought that was, learning from the models we had here today was certainly one of the first lessons. So why don't you summarize whatever you want?
Great.
I got a couple other
So I
things.
got 5 minutes quickly of points from the day, and then some suggestions for this group, because in some ways this is an inner circle of people who've been working hard on this effort. There's obviously many other people that could be in the room, but there's been a lot of leaders that have been here today. And let me give you my takeaway points. So first of all, be optimistic. I think it was F. Scott Fitzgerald said the sign of intelligence was the ability to keep two conflicting ideas in your mind and still function. So the two conflicting ideas here are, first of all, this is hard. Right? This is a broken market. It's difficult. We've been working on it for a long time in the case of many people here. But suddenly, something seems to be happening. For me, whenever I get discouraged, I close my eyes and I think about 15 years from now. It is unimaginable that technology won't transform the classroom. It is unimaginable to me, having seen what I've seen. So the question is only, how do we get from here to there? How do we not lose a generation of kids, and how do we do it correctly? So I think if you had told me a year and a half ago we had 2 FCC commissioners here, a congressman, a representative of the president, people from states that are deploying classrooms that have real data, curriculum that's working, none of this would have been here a couple of years ago, and we're going to be much beyond this a couple of years from now. So for all the challenges, for all the hard work, it is a moment to be optimistic. Second point, reach across the ecosystem. This is all about kids, but the kids don't win unless the ecosystem wins, and none of us win unless the whole group wins. So when you see Evan Marwell working on connection, that's you, right? You need to reach across if you're working on curriculum, because all these things have to move together. If we get devices in the kids' hands and the Wi-Fi doesn't work or the curriculum is a dud, we will have wasted a lot of time and money. So the second point is we have to find the horizontal connections here. I was shocked when I started kicking around this industry that no one knew what anyone else was doing. And so part of the reason that we're holding these conferences, thank you, Jeff, is if we can just all talk about what everyone else is doing, it'll be incredibly important. Third point is be prophets. We have to be cheerleaders. When someone described YouTube to me, everyone can put their home movie clips up on the internet, or Twitter, 140 characters. I was like, why is all this important? When we go out to other people who haven't seen it and describe educational technology, they kind of think it's important, but they have no idea because they haven't seen it. And one of the issues that we have is that the people making decisions have never seen it in practice. Why does the Khan Academy get as much attention as it does? It's very accessible. You can see what it is, how it could work, there's data around it, et cetera. And we're cheerleaders for Khan Academy and everyone else because people who see it actually in action, I think will get behind it. So this group, who is the cognoscente of the industry in some ways, have to go out and make sure that other people understand not what they think blended learning is, but what it actually is. Third point, or fourth point, I live in San Francisco. That's amazing. Every 28-year-old I know is on their third startup, and it is okay to fail. In education, an F is not okay usually, and as a result, we are afraid to fail. There's a whole series of things that have to happen in this industry where we're going to have to try, fail, and quickly try again. That's the way technology works. You've seen some of that with Tom Luna. You've seen some of that with Jeff Mao. So we have to kind of get our courage up to try, fail, try quickly. And the good news is that technology allows that to happen. One of the attendees today is her husband is a friend of mine, a former Special Forces person. He always uses the term, when you have a problem, go to the pain, right? You got to go to the pain. So everyone wants to go do higher ed, right? K to 12 is where the pain is. And as an industry, we have to go to the pain to try to solve that problem. And there's a fair amount of work to be done, but I am encouraged by what we've seen today across a series of people going to the pain. And the last point I think I would hit on is it's really important that we use some of the same words and languages. You'll all choose your own, but I want to just share as an ending point here sort of 10 quick slides I did recently for a New York Times conference, which is 10 things happening in educational technology. You know all these, but what's important is how do we say them and describe them quickly to people who aren't as familiar. So just a David Letterman top 10 riff. So first of all, physical to cloud mobile. So when we say technology, people tend to think workstations. We have to make the point that this is no longer about 50-pound backpacks. This is about cloud mobile. That's the big innovation. Second point is the difference of that is cost. We are down almost 10 times over the last 6 years in terms of $200 a year for a fully loaded iBook. Next slide, please. Rigid to adapted. We know this in every other industry. We used to read just the ads that Time or Life magazine thought we should read. Today we go on the internet, Google serves up the ads that are just special for us. And so we have to serve up education that is special for the student who is doing it. And we understand the change from rigid to adaptive in music. Do we understand it in education? Skills-based teaching, this is going to kill cursive. We used to teach people to type and do cursive. Today, Jim and his people have to teach our kids how to use the tools of the internet. So there's essentially driver's ed for internet that has to occur. Feedback units are going to change. So we used to buy records. We now buy iTunes. There used to be report cards that you got the end of a term. What a crazy idea. You are now going to get hour-to-hour feedback on how kids are doing. Imagine if you knew who was going to fail the test before they took it. It would change education. We can do that now with some of the adaptive software. 6, one of the things we haven't talked about today is ERP. Salesforce.com has changed how people go to market. The software available for classroom management is going to be one of the huge evolutions in educational technology. What is a classroom? Classrooms everywhere were defined on physical units. You had 5 classes a day because that's how many classes you had to fill one day, and you had classrooms of 20 and 200 because that's large lecture or small lecture. We're now going to have classrooms that are defined by Skype as opposed to physical buildings. Major change for our kids. We used to have government approval of what worked. We are now going to have teacher and crowd-based approval. Thanks to the Crowns, thanks to Common Sense Media, we're going to know what works from the people who are actually using it. I would not go on a trip today without looking at TripAdvisor. Why do we think that state boards of eds are going to solve the right curriculum choices in a digital world? We are going to have to face an international world that is moving more quickly than we are. And seat time is ultimately going to have to die. We're going to have personalized learning paths. That's what Khan Academy has become famous for, and that's what's going to happen in our classrooms. And lastly, this is actually going to free the teacher. I believe that it is unfair not to give teachers the tools that they deserve to do their job. And so we got to move them off the sage on the stage and to the guide on the side. So I know I'm preaching to the choir on these things, but the reason I went through these 10 things quickly is that you have to have your own 10. As we go out and talk to people and cheerlead for your particular solutions, your particular part of this market, we have to make clear to the people who aren't as close to it why this is the revolution we know it is. So thank you all really for joining us. A lot to do, a lot to get done. Huge progress in just the last 2 years here, and I look forward to a couple of years from now. Jeff, maybe you'll have us again, and we'll have more progress to report. Thank you.
And a last thank you, guys. A last thank you to Jeff Cowan, Lisa Prince, everybody from Annenberg Sunnyland who did the real work today.